Okay, what I was imagining we would do now, and we can take this anywhere. This is our time. There's no set agenda presentation or anything, but I was just imagining some discussion. So Jim, Corey, Sarah, and I queued up some questions to ask to get things going, and I don't want to drag this on longer than necessary, but I do want to throw a few things out in case people have comments. I feel like I've heard a little bit today about why people are using vegetation departure. I've heard some, there's a Forest Service planning rule. There's Louis, your anecdote about the managers finding that it's really effective to help them manage for wildlife species. I'm curious, how people are planning to use departure, if there's anything else we can add to that question of why people are using departure, and while you're doing vegetation departure assessments, is there anything that we haven't heard that people can add?
We've heard about it, but it's not been emphasized. Is that some of the most powerful use of the departures for communication?
Mm-hmm.
Is that I can do this simulation and manage uncharacteristic glass without ever calculating ecological departure. If landscape is dominated by closed canopy Doug fir when it should be ponderosa pine, that's a no-brainer. I don't need ecological. I could do everything I need to do without even calculating ecological departure. But the public and the managers, they need to see that. And that's the tool for communication and the breakdown of the classes. So this is why the communication part of it should not be underestimated for this.
Good point. I would agree with that for sure. Any other thoughts on that? All right.
It's a great question. I mean, it is about ecological context, right? It's about, and whether it's in the context of a national forest plan revision or, TNC's strategic conservation planning, we want to right size, we want to focus on the ecological outcomes that we think enable biodiversity in the future, and then what the threats are to those. And having data like this helps, is one way to inform those decisions where, okay, yeah, we have 0% of this needed, call it habitat type, or this needed S class. We have some of this, and we need a lot of the first one, and we have about as much as we want of the second one. Okay, yeah, that helps you then make a decision of, okay, we focus on that first one where the need is greatest. So I think there's an internal, and I see this with national forest managers as well, of, a project exists because a project exists, but many of the managers want to develop projects that address biggest, ecological needs. That's awesome. And this is a tool to kind of consistently generate that big picture vision of threats and what you can do about those threats.
Thanks for that tag on, John. And I really appreciated your terminology that was qualitative. I think that's really helpful sometimes to be more qualitative. And I know you were just using that as an example as opposed to making up specific numbers. But I think, yeah, that kind of gives a little bit of fuzz to our numbers sometimes if we're more qualitative, which I think can be less of a problem for people. So yeah, I don't know if that was, again, strategic on your part, but I did appreciate it. Another question I think super important is, are there things that folks are confused about that they wanted to ask about now? And again, we have Jackie here. If you feel like just messaging her, she said you would take the ball, but hopefully you feel comfortable and you can come off camera if you want, or type something in the chat. Is there anything we can circle back to for clarification over the last 2 days that would help you? Just want to throw that out there for sure.
Did you talk about the S-Class tool while I was gone? Okay, all right. Just want to make sure people know it does work with ArcPro. It is something that you can use. It's not a LANDFIRE product, but we're happy to engage you if you want to use it, okay? So thanks. I just wanted to make sure that was covered somewhere.
Great, Jim. Thank you. And there's not, as far as I know, like a specific website for that. So I think that you would have to reach out to us and we can send that to you, connect you to the developers. I've even put together a little bit of a video and some data that you could load into it as a tutorial if you want. So let me know. Corey, does that sound right? Am I right that there's not a...
Yeah. We've just given it to people on a case-by-case basis. It's a tool that the LANDFIRE Production Team actually uses. And but we do not support it. So we'll give it to people, but we don't actively support it.
We support it as best we can, but
Right.
there's a limit. And just to give credit where it's due, that was developed by Michelle Hawks and Don Helmbrecht when they were on a technology enterprise team with the Forest Service. So that's why I say it's not a LANDFIRE or a TNC product. It was actually developed by the Forest Service for their work on that technology enterprise team. So kudos to them, because it is much better than doing it by hand.
Yeah, thanks for that. We also wondered, I'm hoping you would have shouted out, but what would help you with this? Do you best like one-on-one demos and meetings? Do you sharing code? Do you like YouTube videos that we could do, tutorials like that? I mean, is there any ways that you can let us know of that would help you in calculating vegetation departure or trying to take the next step, wherever you're at in your process?
For me, it's not so much a depart. I have, and Corey knows this from having worked with her on the Colorado River Basin hydrology stuff and all that, is that often we're grabbing large landscapes. So I go to the LANDFIRE data when I grab enormous landscape for which I have not done, our shop has not done the remote sensing on. And our greatest challenge and where I pull my hair is the whole BPS, S-class, correct pigeonhole, like what goes where and all that. And these tools that you've shown, I think probably that was Sarah was saying, like, I wish I'd known this like 4 years ago type of thing. That's where I spend a lot of time pulling my hair when I interpret that, because I'm not aware always about what's available out there and that you guys have done. And this is where the tool for me is, is that cross. I mean, imagine I'm literally taking a 120 million acre landscape, and Sarah gives me a table of all how we have to lump systems. I'm doing system lumping and reclassifying and all that. And I have to have a way of doing it. I actually do this manually in my head. I can just read stuff and know what class it is, but sometimes it's difficult, and automation would really make my life more simple. So this is, and I've probably done stuff that were not kosher in the past just because I didn't realize I was not supposed to do them, and I did them anyway. So this is where some of these tools we could use to simplify our work to get the correct LANDFIRE data in a format that is, I don't need to lose sleep, because I can spend 2 days on one Excel table, boiling it down. And at the end of that day, I'm not a very pleasant person. I can tell you that.
So Louis, in specific, is that doing manual succession classing, or is that calculating vegetation departure from? Okay.
The exercise Corey did. So the herbaceous I didn't even have necessarily the rule book, but tree cover between 10 and 30%. So that goes in what safer system, what classified group system, and the correct thing. And what happens when there's these weird names about exotics that I'm not exactly sure what they mean, and all that stuff is the processing of the cover height data to pigeonhole in the appropriate class for this system I'm creating. That may be a lumping of black and low safers, for example. That a tool that helps me do that is really, that's what I need often. So
all right, gotcha. And I really appreciated Amy's comments earlier around that. I think that it's not a huge stretch for us to take what I've done with the S-classing tool and Corey's done and batch up some materials for people, but then also make a little video for people who are more interested in taking the combined from. So for you, Louis, it might be taking the combined that Sarah does and automate some of that filtering and labeling and binning for you in Excel. And then, people could help me work on my R code a little bit so that it's shareable for people to at least do the first phase manual S classing. That would be That'd be great. And thanks, Amy. Really looking forward to collaborating on that. And Joanne, hi, how are you? I see your hand up. Good to see you.
Hey, how are you doing? When I was working with Amy and we were starting to do this, maybe what was not needed, but what was incredibly useful was your guide. So you had a written guide that I could put up on the screen. And I've done this a couple different times, but I hadn't worked with your current products. But having just that written information was really helpful. So I had your paper, the guide you have for how to use the different products, where to go get it, how to connect them. So for somebody who's just starting to do this, that was really useful. I had to go find it in a different place every time, but or I grabbed different versions of it. But for me, my kids do YouTube for everything. I get it, but I don't. I'm old school. I like paper. Now I like digital paper, but having just the simple for the first person who's doing it. And then Amy does great code. So now I can understand the R code that she writes and how we apply that. But having that guide was really useful. So that's something worth keeping, as well as having our example to make our jobs more efficient when we start doing this at scale. But I just wanted to put that out there because it was really useful when we started to develop that R code to have those papers available.
That's great to hear, Joanne. I really appreciate that. And your comments making me think we almost need, and it's almost like we need a librarian, like an information manager that, I think we're going to be working on improving this. And then after this workshop, we're going to try to bin up some resources for you around this. But it's so, everything's are just evolving, between tool development, code development, new versions of LANDFIRE data, our attribute tables are pretty locked in, but every now and then there'll be something new in the attribute table. So we almost need a librarian to manage the information, but I'm really glad it was helpful. And I think that will inspire us, because it's hard for me sometimes with a video to hit pause fast enough, to see what was going on. So everybody learns in different ways. So yeah, thanks tons for that, Joanne. And Amy, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I also totally hate videos, not a fan. But just to follow up on something that Joanne said, one of the things that I sometimes struggle with on the LANDFIRE page is finding exactly what data I'm looking for. So that idea of a librarian is actually pretty cool to me. Like that spreadsheet that you had yesterday that had all of the biophysical settings and their departure in a spreadsheet, right? Like at one point in time, I knew that it was there, and it probably took me 15 minutes to find because I didn't know exactly where to look. So like when you're doing an example and you say, by the way, the data is on this page, maybe showing exactly which piece of data on the page it is. So it's not just it's on this page, but it's this link. I've hammered on this long enough that I know which one it is now, but it was a process to me, and with a lot of these trainings, and we've all been there, right? Where you go and you're pumped and you want to do it, and then the hardest thing is getting the data and getting the data in the format you need. So any way that you can Dick and Jane people through that to make it as cookbook and simple as possible, I think will help with that acceptance and build that community to make things more efficient and faster.
Yeah, thanks for that, Amy, because I know, Jim, Sarah, Corey, Megan, and I, and Kim Hall, all of us on our team, especially Jim, Corey, Sarah, and I, we've been doing this for a long time. And so it's easy for us to forget what it might be like for someone to go to landfire.gov pumped, and they know they need this data, and they're like, oh, wow, I'm stuck. Where do I go now? I mean, it's hard for us to remember that as much as we try. So I appreciate that comment, and hope people will constantly remind us of what it's like to be a beginner and excited and new to go to this, because it can be really hard. My example is like wanting to run some R code, and I think I'm going to do something, and it's going to be simple, and it takes 3 hours. And it's like, so we don't want you to feel that any more than necessary.
Amy, I will chime in and say that there is a revision of the Landfire website underway that is intended, whether we'll succeed or not, is intended to make finding data more intuitive and easier, as that should be the first role of the website.
Should I put you on speed dial to tell you about my
yeah.
feelings?
Yeah, you'd be glad to do that. And I think it will go out for testing. I don't know when it's scheduled to be available, but, you know, that's been recognized for a long time that, you know, sometimes I have to remember where do I go to find the Modified Views website. I don't remember, you know, I have to go poke around, you know, and that's sad to say. So, like I said, I'm hoping that it will be much better than it has been in the past, because it was recognized that people were having real trouble finding the data that they were interested in. You know, we were so intent on putting everything out there so everybody understood everything, then the core got lost. And that's something.
Totally get it.
Yeah. So thanks for bringing that up, because that is a real issue, not very common, let's just say, to put it nicely.
And I also think there's things our team can do. I know we've set up some stuff in our markdown with walking people through how to do some of the modeling. And so this is making me think maybe we have some opportunities to just do some basic, like our markdown website stuff, where we do say, hey, here are the data sets you need, and here are exactly where they are. And we just provide that resource for people. I mean, like, we can put together some of the info that we've done for this workshop and almost do something similar that's like a quick, like, so you want to do ecological departure, like with the resources from here. And I think that might be super good as a companion to not only this, just like something easy for us to share, you know, and as our markdown sites, kind of once we have that template, it's not super hard to like change the info that's on them and think about different topics that people might have. So if there are things that come up as you're trying to do not just departure but other things with Landfire data, let us know that, because we can set that up. We know where all the stuff is, and so it's pretty easy for us to find it and put it in a space for you.
So I just put the website that Sarah mentioned in the chat, and I think that's a great idea. Again, it's not too hard for us to do this. So it would be great if we collected, you know, a handful of, you know, I really want to do blank with Landfire data, so we would know where to aim our work, and it would be easy for us to put, you know, any R code in there and hide it, and you hit a button and the R code pops up, some test data, that sort of thing. Yeah, so yeah, I like that idea a lot, Sarah. Another question we had, and this might be my last one for the day, then we can start to wrap up, which is, have you used a reference condition that was not historical, like a desired condition that you were calculating against current to get a departure value from? I can see that coming up a little bit more. And in a way, when you do comparing forest plan to, yeah, I would imagine some forest plans somewhere are not based on reference. They're more based on maybe a hybrid of reference and timber production values or something like that. So I'm guessing it's out there somewhere, but yeah, in forest planning efforts, that seems like I'm vaguely remembering that in my mind. All right, with that, I think I'm gonna just start the wrap-up process a little bit early. I don't need to keep going on here. There's been so much great stuff that's happened over the last 2 days. And first, I want to say thank you tons for sticking with us and for your chat, your discussion, your questions, your ideas now and any that come up in the future. So thanks tons. This is our first time trying this. So please fill out the poll if you haven't done that already. And we'll really look forward to your comments there. The second thing is that we'll be working hard to kind of capture everything from the chats, capture our notes and anything that you might send over the next couple of days, and put together a page It might be on the web, it might be a PDF. We haven't talked about exactly what that would look like, but of resources and links and papers and things like that that we've talked about. So you have them in one place. Also, I think that, I will look into, I'll put the Slack channel invite out there for you. And I know that Forest Service, that may or may not work. So it'll be there in case, but we're also, Jim, you missed this. There was a fair amount of talk around, sharing our code via GitHub. So I think that can be a pretty easy lift for us to set up some sort of organizational structure within the Nature Conservancy's GitHub account to share code. And it would be a low stakes sort of thing. I know any code that I put up there will have like some sort of disclaimer, not that I need a legal disclaimer, but something like that, just that was written by me and to use with care and to review all outputs. So that was definitely an outcome that happened today that we can follow up on. And we hope that we'll hear from you in the future and learn about your innovations. Louis, I hope Louis and team, I should say, I hope your paper comes out soon. For those other of you also doing departure work, please keep us in the loop. We'd love to learn from you and help you as you go about that. And then I might end and say, and then, open the floor for anyone else, that again, we're a small part of the broader LANDFIRE program. We're the lucky ones who get to do a lot of education, outreach, application work with the LANDFIRE data, but we're just a small part of the broader team. So while we're the ones kind of speaking today, I wanted to acknowledge them because they're the ones who do all the hard work of mapping across all the data sets. And it is truly an amazing effort when you think there's at least 9 billion 30 meter by 30 meter pixels in the lower 48 that are all labeled in dozens of different ways across dozens of data sets. It is really incredible. So I just want to shout out to them. So with that, I wanted to, Jim, I know you have somewhere to be, but I wanted to give you the last word if you want it.
Well, I'll take it. Just to sort of wrap this up and I got to thank everybody for sticking it out. I mean, this is like 12 hours by the time it's all said and done. I don't know how long it is, but it was a lot. And to stick it out this long is really, really amazing. We appreciate your persistence and your interest. Thanks to Corey and Randy and Louie and everybody that participated. Jackie Carr, who helped us set all this up. There's too many people to thank, and I'll leave somebody out. So I'm not going to try to be complete on that. But I will say that, our goal was our ultimate goal at some point is to see what I would call improved or enhanced appropriate application of the departure metric. All the way from simple, as Louis said, all the way to the complicated, whatever that is, that's our goal. Because I think we believe to our core that it does have value. It doesn't tell you everything, but it does have value amongst the tool set that we have available to us. So we want to make sure that that tool is understood as well as possible, and that it's used as appropriately as possible. And to wrap that up, I'd say, we're a small team, but we want to help you if you have questions, if you have needs, specific, general, whatever. That is what we want to do. It's the best part of our job, and we want to do more of it, as much of it as we can. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to us and ask for help or clarification or support or whatever it is that you need. And thanks again for joining us. And if you have not taken the poll that either has been put up or will be put up, I'm not sure. It is important to us to learn what went well and what didn't go well, what was useful and what wasn't useful. So please let us know so that we can make this even better for others who come behind you. So thanks once again for all your work and all your help, and good luck with everything in the future.
All right, thanks. I think we'll call it a wrap with that. Thanks, everyone.